Check Complete, a referee podcast, is an educational resource for referees by referees, designed to connect and develop soccer officials of all ages and skill levels to better serve the game both on and off the field. Episode 16 of the Check Complete podcast. We're back and we got some great content for you. I am excited to be here alongside our guest co-host for today, my friend, my colleague at work and in refereeing and in life, I suppose.
That's true.
Phil Gomez.
Yes, thank you for having me, Gordie. I'm excited to be on the Check Complete podcast. Love this setup. It's very homey and family oriented. So
that's right. Yes, a viewing for all ages.
Indeed.
We are welcome to this great viewing. So Phil is here with us today, and we're going to hear about his story as a referee, as well as just a little bit more about what he does for his day job and how that interacts with officials. That will become apparent as we have our discussion. I'm also really excited to sit down with Pro 2 AR Kali Smith. And so I'll interview Kali. We'll have a Zoom call with her and hear about her story and get some questions answered and kind of her journey. It's always exciting to hear different referees as they've moved up the ladder. I know for a lot of us, we're not working professional level games, but hopefully you can find a way to connect with her story. And I'm sure we will, as everybody has such a unique story with the challenges of balancing work and life and family and all that kind of stuff. So really excited to hear from Kali. So let's just jump right into this, Phil. Let's start off with your story. You've been refereeing for a while. You've got quite a bit of accolades and accomplishments and things under your belt. So let's go to the beginning. How did you get started? Where did you get started? What made you get into refereeing?
I was a soccer player for so long, a youth player, wasn't very good, and then I hit an injury in high school, a back injury that really knocked some sense into me to say, I kind of want to stop playing and maybe find something else. But then I felt this void in my life where I just felt incomplete. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I need soccer still in some aspect of it. And so what I did was certify to be a referee in 2007, and it was only at the grassroots recreational level. Our main field in Shawnee, Kansas was actually right next to the local trash site. So let's just say if there was a certain wind some days, it would sting the nostrils.
Yeah.
Not very pleasant, but that could have also kept the parents from yelling at me as much as they do. But I think my story is interesting because I've never thought in 2007 as a young kid, a junior in high school, that it would lead to where I'm at now in front of a camera on a podcast with you and just in general, all of my accolades that I've achieved through it. Telling a young kid at 17 or 16 years old that your future is going to be this in 15 years, I'd be like, no. Right. You're kidding me, right? And so I think I have something to add to young referees everywhere to say that this is my pathway. I don't think there's a certain pathway, even if you want to get to the professional levels. Everyone's pathway is specific to their own journey.
Right.
And I think this is just one way that I got to where I am at that I'd like to share with everybody. But again, we all have our own journey in terms of what goals we want to achieve or where we want to go with a refereeing career.
Yeah. And I don't think we can emphasize that enough in our roles with our local officials to let them know that, hey, just because someone did it this way doesn't mean that's the cookie cutter path, right? There's going to be things that are, right? The journey's going to look, the milestones are going to be similar, but how you get to them and when you get to them will be different. So be patient with yourself. So when you hear Phil's story, it's going to be different than yours. So don't try to mimic it, but there's things that you can take away from that, just like we do with all of our guests, right?
Yes.
There's so much that we can hear and learn from, but don't take it as like, if it doesn't go like this, I'm screwed. Like, that's just not true.
And that's as a young kid, that's what you get that mindset. It's like, oh my gosh, this pro referee or AR, like I want to be just like them. I got to figure out everything about their life and do exactly it the same way. And that is just 100% not true.
Right.
It is something that each pathway of refereeing, and you'll see when I go through my journey, has its own aspects. If you do it this route, you can still get to that goal. Or if you do it this way, you can get to that goal that you set out for yourself. But always set out goals of whatever you want to achieve, but make sure they're attainable within the short run of it so that you can always have that motivation to keep going and pushing that extra mile to get to that next goal that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's great. We're going to have to do a whole segment on goal setting. We should bring in a psychiatrist or something to talk about that. That would be really, really helpful.
That
just dawned on me right now. No one steal that in the outer sphere.
Nope.
That's ours. Check Complete's going to do that.
Check Complete got it first.
So that'll be another episode. But Phil, talk to us about your journey.
Yes.
Let's get into this.
Let's get into it. So Shawnee, Kansas, rec fields, grassroots soccer, right next to a dump, no lights, all grass fields.
Shawnee, Kansas, for those who are not familiar with the Kansas City area, is a suburb of Kansas City on the Kansas side. So what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes from downtown, depending on if you're obeying the speed limit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Follow the speed limit, obviously.
Right.
But these games were very local, very rec-based, very not as competitive. At the time I certified, I had no idea there was a competitive aspect to youth soccer. It was only recently, after a couple years of doing this, where they're like, hey, do you have aspirations to move up? Do you want to do some more stuff? And I was like, yeah, what else is there? Because all I know is I'm going out on the weekends to my local rec fields and refereeing. What do you mean there's more to this? Right. And obviously MLS was happening, but I was like, those guys must have been picked way long ago. And I was just like, okay. So I started in 2007. I moved up in 2010. I upgraded to a grade 7 at the time. Now that grade 7 and 8 are both grassroots referees, but at the time it was another level to achieve. So I set my goal out that I want to be a grade 7 and meet those requirements that U.S. Soccer set for that grade to make sure that I keep moving up. And that got me into more of a state cup, more competitive in the local leagues here. For Kansas City, it's Heartland Soccer Association, and then Kansas State Cup and Kansas President's Cup, which the soccer level went from here to up to here, and the intensities of the matches increased, and what were the players playing for. And I had no aspect that this was a thing for referees to actually get to and attain. And then it dawned on me that someone was like, oh yeah, this is State Cup. And at the time in 2010, USU Soccer decided that the 2010 USU Soccer National Championships would be in Overland Park, Kansas at the new facility that we just had in Overland Park that was just opened. And so that was exciting, and soccer was growing. And that also gave me an aspect of, wait, there's a national championship for youth soccer? Oh, and then I found out there's a regional championships for youth soccer, and they need referees for these events. And so it finally dawned on me that this is something that's more of a bigger scheme, that as a grassroots referee who's just certifying, going out on the weekends, you may not have any idea about it.
Right.
And so telling people my story of how this all happens, I mean, it was by chance that we would get a new soccer facility and USU Soccer would come down to host the national championships there. But at that time, I volunteered as a field marshal and a statistician, I think they called it. So it brought my eyes open to all the competitive teams across the country at the time, and all the referees across the country, who all those referees now, John Freeman was included in that, and some other referees who are doing MLS right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
At the time, the referee administrator, I think the guest speaker was Brian Hall, former FIFA World Cup referee. And I was like, this guy who refed at the FIFA World Cup? Like, awestruck. Yeah. But it was just amazing to see the passion that these referees, that the passion the players had, that the coaches had, and that the soccer community was really just all around them, supporting them in their journey to do this.
Yeah.
And instantly after that Nationals in 2010, I said, I want to work my way up. Yeah. I want to try to get to these goals and do that. And so I started by asking, how do I do State Cup? And for those watching, every single state that you certify in has a state association for USU Soccer. Some of the state associations are split into 2 states. So figure out, if you want to move up from just your recreational league and you want to keep learning and developing your skill set, then ask your assigners, how do I get to the State Cup level? How do I get to the President's Cup level? These are national cup events that I don't think a lot of grassroots referee may even know. Right. Because when I played, I wasn't a competitive player. Like, I mean, it was, but it was like D5. So take that for what it is. It's different nowadays, and I also wasn't very good. But these events happen, and the starting point is at the state level, that every grassroots referee, if you have aspirations to do it, reach out. Reach out to those assigners, to those referee coaches, those mentors, to say, can you watch me on my game? I have a goal to achieve this. And listen to them, being open to the content that they're giving you because it's going to get you there. And that's what I did. And it led me to going to USU Soccer Midwest Regionals from 2011 to 2017. And that's 7 years of my life that I traveled with friends of referees who are still my friends and lifelong friends that I met there. Some of them are national referees. Some of them are doing MLS games right now. I mean, it was amazing how much I learned from being in a community of referees that traveled to these events and how long that they would be my friends for life.
Right.
Had no aspect as a young kid.
Right.
And then my last year in 2017, I went to both President's Cup Regionals and Midwest Regional Championships. And in 2017 at President's Cup, it was here in Kansas City, the Midwest one. And my dad came out to watch me, and then I gave him the news, I think it was actually on Father's Day, that I was selected to go to the 2017 National President's Cup event in Auburndale, Florida.
Oh, wow.
So a special moment. Shout out to Papa Gomez. He's been very supportive of me and my refereeing journey and everything like that. And having family support you during this is a critical aspect of it. Being open to them to understand that you're going to take a lot of time on the weekends. I mean, it's a sacrifice that you either have to make if you want to achieve these goals. But you have to decide yourself if that's something that you want to set. No one's going to make you do it. No one's going to force you to do it. But if you actually set your mind to it, you can do it. And so I was excited about that, going to National President's Cup in Florida, my first National Cup event. And then I went to regionals in South Dakota, and I was selected as the 2017 Terry Vaughn Young Referee of that event. So that was an exciting time for me and an honor and a privilege to be selected for that award based off my hard work, based off my connections with people. I think one of the assigners and coaches said that it was the little things you did, Phil. It was you were in the referee tent, you were there, you were on standby, you were active, you helped clean up after the tables. It's little acts like these that you think that aren't noticed by those referee administrators and assigners that they do. Everyone's watching everybody, and you hear that a lot, but it's actually true. And so they were like, we love the energy that you had. We love the fact that you were helpful. Your games went well. You got a final. It was awesome. And we want to award you as the second recipient ever of the award that's named after Terry Vaughn from Iowa, a FIFA referee, which is the highlight at the time of my life as a youth referee. And so it was quite the honor. And now I actually have two other friends who won that award recently, and they're on track. One's a national referee, and one's probably on the way in the track to be a national referee. So just be in that same group, at some point I decided that I didn't have as much aspirations to go that route. It did change a little bit, and that's fine. That was my decision to just kind of just stay where I'm at. But so that was me as a referee. I upgraded from the 7 to a 6, which is a state referee at the time in 2015, and then I'm still a regional referee for U.S. Soccer from 2020 to now. So, and of course, your viewers are probably like, what's the regional referee? What's a state referee? What is this? For those grassroots referees who don't know the grading system, that's okay. You're just there at the grassroots level to referee youth soccer games to make sure players are having a good time with soccer. But there is an upgrade process now that U.S. Soccer has that goes from grassroots to regional referee. And there are certain standards that you have to meet in order to achieve this level, like a fitness test, like your game count, the harder regional referee exam that you have to go to an advanced clinic. So each state's different in their educational process, but each state should be able to share that information with you if you have aspirations to go from grassroots to regional, which I recommend personally that just look into it. You don't know unless you try, and just ask some other people who might be regional referees what it's like, how was it, and everything like that.
Right, absolutely. It's I think, and to go back to something you had said earlier, and on that same note, if you have any interest at all in this, reach out to people in leadership. And you don't have to know the one person. It's just anybody that assigner, a senior level official. Hey, I'm just kind of curious about this. But let me also kind of issue a challenge to those of you that listen who are in positions of leadership. This is something we're trying to do in Kansas. and including the people that are behind the camera as well, is trying to identify those whose eyes we can open to this. Because there's probably, I think to me, that's one of the more kind of haunting things, is realizing how many referees, we never got them a chance to see what this could be.
Yes.
We never gave them an opportunity to come and work at, if it's Junior State Cup, we have a junior event in Kansas, or a President's Cup event, or just some sort of invitation to come participate in another tournament. We're trying to do a few other things to go, okay, let's kind of open your eyes, kind of expose you to something a little bit bigger. And who knows, that you never know what that could click for somebody. But I think the haunting thing is to think about how many people never got that.
Exactly.
And could have had a moment where they went, and I'm not saying it's the next FIFA referee, but maybe it could be the next person that can do a really nice job with a tough youth game on a weekend, or a tough high school game, or a tough NAIA or D3, D2, D1 game or something. So I guess to kind of, and we probably will touch more of this on your day job too, as we work together consistently, is trying to find opportunities to engage more and more and more, and to call out folks to go, hey, we saw you have. Yeah, are they going to be ready to go for State Cup right away? Absolutely not. Yeah. But we saw something in you that we're like, we really liked that. Come join us for this. Even if we'll run a couple lines and put you on standby. I mean, you never know, especially for teenagers, how impactful that can truly be. Anyway, sorry, a little bit of a soapbox for me, but I really appreciate you sharing that, not just from your own experience, but then I guess as we get into it.
It is all true. I mean, everyone has their own journey in terms of just trying it out. I mean,
yeah, right.
Doing a good job on the weekends at a rec league is great. And we want to recognize that and support those referees that are doing that and showing that time commitment. And like you said, they won't be ready for State Cup. But if we support them there, they might have their eyes open to what could be.
Absolutely. That's, couldn't have said it better myself, but I did. I did say it.
Yes.
But I don't know if it was better, but I said it myself.
Yeah, I think it was better for me.
But you probably did it better.
But anyway, I mean, obviously as a high school kid when I started, and I talked about all these events I went to, I went to college. I realized, listen now, if you're a referee in high school and you're going to college or needed the best part-time job in college, continue to referee.
Referee.
You literally make your own schedules. You take your morning classes. If you have a test or an exam, you can schedule off to make sure you study, because studying is key, kids. But it is the best part-time job to have. And so what I did when I went to Kansas State University is I worked high school games in Manhattan, Kansas, in Topeka, Kansas, and Junction City. And then I would also be certified in all of Kansas, so I could go to Wichita or come back home to Kansas City, where I currently am at. So refereeing at the high school level, it's a whole different aspect of certification and processes, but it is another avenue that, like we talked about, pathways that you can take. You can be an outstanding high school referee without being noticed at the grassroots recreational level for U.S. soccer. And if we see you and work with you in the high school association on doing varsity or JV or C team games and you're crushing it, you're being invited to state tournaments, that's another aspect to say that we can go to you as referee admins to say, hey, you need to get certified for U.S. soccer. We see something in you. We think that you can move up over than just high school, which, of course, after high school is the college game. And I'm certified both in high school and in college currently. And I joined my college chapter after I graduated from college just because of the time commitment and traveling that's heavily involved with having to get to the game site an hour before, but the game site's 2 hours away. I mean, to give a reference point, there's a school that's 3 hours away. They do double header. I leave at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and I don't get back till 8 p.m. that same day because of the time traveling and everything. But the money is good. It's about over $400. And so if you think about it, you got $400 in one single day. So it's a balancing act of what's more valuable. Is it your time, or are you a college student who's like, well, I'm okay with coming back at 8 p.m. and still being able to see my friends. I could get certified in college and go make some money and then come back.
Right, 8 p.m., you see your friends for about an hour, and then, like most college kids, it's bedtime by about 10.
Yes, of course. Nothing more extracurricular is happening.
Right.
Other than studying.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So there's lots and lots of opportunities, and you've been able to explore that in your career and have had lots of opportunities with that kind of stuff, which has been rewarding, and now you're able to kind of pass that on in different capacities.
Yes. So like we said, people are wondering what's our work life like at the office and why he keeps saying that we're coworkers, because we are.
We are.
We are. It was after 2017, a position opened up at my local state association, Kansas. So I currently am the director of marketing, tournaments, and events for Kansas Youth Soccer. And that did make me have to give up the aspect of refereeing youth soccer in Kansas, because obviously we register them. It's this awkward thing that if I kick out a coach, he has to pay a fine, and then he has to pay it to me. And, people just thought that might be a little
spicy.
Yeah, but I consider it fundraising. And so I think it would be okay. But I got outvoted. It's fine. No hard feelings. And I think it's better to keep me out of trouble because, it gets a little dicey after that. Yeah. But, so yeah, I'm the tournament director. So I actually now, like I said, I work state cup events, and now I'm the guy planning these out. I'm the director of State Cup, President's Cup, and Junior State Cup here in Kansas, where I make the schedules, ask the teams to register, answer all the coaches' questions, the manager questions, deal with the rostering rules that people don't see, everything administrative that you can do. And I'm currently doing that now for the girls' fall State Cup and President's Cup that will be here in Kansas City, Kansas, and that hopefully I get the schedule done, the first draft schedule done, get it to you so you can start emailing your referees to make sure that we can get those games covered, because we have a long list of referees, right, to want to do these events. So, again, like you look back in 2007 and you tell little Phil, hey, you're going to be the tournament director of this event someday. I'll be like, you're funny. That's funny.
Right.
But it is what it is. And my life is all full-time soccer. And I have a fun hashtag that I use on Twitter, is hashtag full-time soccer. Because it literally is the definition of it. So
what's your Twitter handle, by the way? This is amusing content if you're interested.
It's I am Phil.
At I am Phil.
_ KS on Twitter. But I'm hard to find, but I'm also it's a public profile, but it's whatever.
Yeah, there you go. It is interesting content, or it'll drive you to drink.
But you know what? Follow Kansas Youth Soccer. That's the better content. I do a lot of fun things for the kids.
Yes.
Every year we do a tournament draw, and I've seen I got ideas of other state associations of how they do their draw, and obviously the World Cup's this year, and I've seen World Cup draws, and they have the little plastic soccer balls, and they're like Brazil. I thought, how cool would that be to do it? And so I'm not the World Cup, I'm not FIFA, I got a small little budget, so we use Easter eggs. They're colorful though, okay? Mm-hmm. And we draw the teams out that need to be drawn in seeded place, because it's the fairest thing. Before, we used to have the coaches seed the teams, but then we found that some coaches would team up together and not be so honest. So got rid of that. We reward the teams that previously won the event. We do a double blind draw, and before every live video stream, I would do a shenanigan or some sort of dance choreographed. I'm trying to learn TikTok, if I'm gonna be honest with you, and just to get people's eyes and attention, be like, who's this guy dancing on my Facebook feed right now? That's me. So far, the coaches, the players have actually approached me and like, we love it. You keep it fun for the kids. I never thought they'd say they love it. They do. So we're just gonna go with it.
Just don't watch it on a full stomach, Hero.
No, don't. But it's fun. It keeps it lively. It keeps it short and sweet and to the point for the kids. So it's fun being a tournament director. And I think there's another aspect of my job that I can share with you guys about, working with referees and how, you could talk about a relationship of how we work together during events, since we have 3 under our belt now as a team.
Right. Yeah, Phil and I have had some discussions about this at length, and I know wherever you're at in your neck of the woods, you are probably working tournaments at least somewhat regularly. Maybe not the state tournaments, but tournaments in some regards. And even when you're not doing tournaments and you're just doing league activity, there is always going to be an aspect of administrative tasks that must be completed by the referees. And if any of us have refereed for any length of time, we are well aware of that. Okay, and the accuracy of that is crucial. We'll just put it at that.
Put it at that.
Yeah, we'll just put it at that. And so, for those of you that have been a part of, especially state tournaments or events where you've traveled, where it's especially crucial, you have probably heard leadership in some way just harp on the importance of reporting things accurately, concisely, legibly, all of that, to make sure that the information is recorded correctly and that the tournament can move on as smoothly as possible. Phil and I, in the capacity that with me as the director of referee development and him working with events, tournaments, and marketing, get an opportunity to work together quite a bit in these tournaments. And it is, I will tell you now, being on the other side of this, because I share a similar, 15 years ago, if you would have said I was in this role, there's just no way, right? So I share that. I share that. We share so many moments where before we were in these roles, we had no concept, or maybe very little concept. We probably weren't totally detached, but it's become much clearer the pain points that come from referees not taking care of business and dealing with the controllables. And we've harped on controlling controllables in this podcast on a few different occasions. And so we won't harp too much, but there will be a little bit of a re-up on this to just say how important it is as a referee. It is not just one of those things where you go out and you kind of buy the gear and just try to get through the game and get your paycheck and get home. Those kinds of referees are not going to find success in what you're doing. And so if you're watching this podcast, you're probably not one of those people, most likely.
Hopefully.
Unless you're stuck in some sort of dental waiting room and have nothing else to watch.
No,
which
it's the worst.
I don't know, some dentist that's also a referee. But what we have discussed and what I think we're trying to convey here, and what I'll let you talk more about, is just the importance of addressing the controllable moments and taking care of those little things, especially when it comes to administrative tasks, that can make you stand out and be more successful. Obviously, we want solid performances on the field, but there are, just like you mentioned with your Terry Vaughn Award in 2017, there are other circumstances and other things that that happen. Excuse me. It's a very touching sentiment for me. I get broken up. Yep. There's other things that happen around the game that if we don't take care of them, why would you want to give yourself a black eye for something that has nothing to do with the actual refereeing performance? Take care of these other things. The stuff on the field's going to happen.
Yes.
You're going to have the games that are tough. You're going to have the games that go well. But take care of the other little things. So from your vantage point, what has been, in your experience in this role, the moments or the things that are most important? Or if you want to go about it from this route, you could talk about the things that are most missed.
Yes. People may not think that, I go out and do a game that's very competitive at regionals or nationals or at your state cup local level and think, I rocked that game. It was the best. There are a couple cards here, no big issues, nothing, great. And then you fill out the game card and you just kind of like, I'm so hyped. It was a great job. You're like, you have your crew do it, or maybe you do it and just in a rush, things happen, mistakes happen. And then I get the game card as a tournament director. I input the scores. And the scoring is, of course, the most important thing for the parents who pay all this money and the coaches who want to see their team succeed. Because kids at this level, at state, regional, and nationals, they're trying to get scholarships to play collegiately. They're trying to get a better education. There is scholastic money on the line for these athletes. Mm-hmm. And it's very important that we get these things that are controllable right. So I've had instances in state cup or actually at some national events that I helped USU soccer with, where game cards had the wrong team winning, and we would get an email about how, the score was 5-4 us. And so when you get those emails, it's disheartening because, we, as a tournament director, we want to work with the referees on every aspect and every level. One's not above the other. This is a relationship that the tournament director and the referees have to have as administrators like us. And so I get these emails that say the score's incorrect. I have to take the time to verify this email and respond to them. So I have to get that game card, which is in a pile of game cards from that day, which could have 30 games. So I have to get that game card, find it. I found it. Okay, the score says 5-4, but they say it's flipped. All right, so who's the referee? I see the name. That is, if they sign it, please sign your game cards. I need to contact you or contact the referee assigner to say, hey, can you get in touch with so-and-so? I'd like to verify a score to see who won. And simplest things, you do so many games. That's why it's important to put, team A was in blue, team B was in white. It's important to you can call the referee and say, hey, who won that game at 12 o'clock? Was it the white team or the blue team? Because you put that on there. And that's actually better than if you see the same team and same club, rush soccer or, something like that over and over. You might not remember exactly what game, but if you have the colors and you write that down, that's something that is very helpful. And so if we can address the issues, if it was actually the white team that won, not the blue team, and I'll go, okay, well, in the game card, you have it reversed. Are you sure? It's like, yes, I'm sorry, I made that mistake. No problem, accidents happen, and we move on. But I have to respond to that coach or parent or manager, say, you're right, the score has been changed. But then now that tells the referee assigner and the tournament director that this referee might have a strike, call it a strike, of just when you guys as referees, assigners, are looking at who deserves the final, who deserves to get invited to regionals, who deserves to go to nationals. You could have the most outstanding performance, but when it comes to something as simple as just a game card, flip-flop scored, that's a small strike that, outweighs that you're going to pick the other person rather than the one who filled it out. So instances of controlling those type of controllables, filling out your game card at the local grassroots level in your local league games, that's even critical too, because every single tournament director or league assigner wants to make sure that the game is correct on the game card. So don't rush those things. Double check, triple check, have everyone on the crew check to make sure that everything's correct at that aspect. So that would be the main one that causes tournament directors just a little bit of headaches, because there's sometimes that we have to deflect from the referees and take the force of some complaints based off judgment calls and everything, but judgment calls are judgment calls. At the end of the day, the game is judged by the referee. But those, we defend you guys as much as we can because we know that you're doing a great job. But when you have a mistake on a game card, that's something that's simple and easy that, that could cost you a final or getting selected to go to the next level.
Right.
So those simple things are crucial. Or half links. Make sure you get the right half links. We had a tournament recently within the last year that the referee accidentally played the wrong half link, and then they restarted before we could address it. That took up about 12 hours of administration's time to resolve that issue because one team wanted to protest it because by the rule, it was incorrect based off the age group. So people may not think that, it's that big of a deal, but it is. It takes hours of people's times, board of directors on association boards, times who have full-time jobs as well, that we want to make sure that we don't have to cause them any issues if we can control it ourselves.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So take care of those little details and keep people like us happy. Is that what we're trying to say?
Yes. Yes. The less emails Gordie and I get, the better for everybody, and that can translate to your local levels wherever you're refereeing at.
Right, absolutely. So, very good. Well, Phil, thank you. We're not done with you yet. We're going to take a short break. We're going to have a word from our sponsor, JF Consulting, and then we're going to come back and have a chat with Kali Smith. Super excited to chat with her, and then we'll shut things down with Phil again. But thanks for your time today, man. This has been wonderful.
This has been wonderful.
You're the man. All right. Enjoy this lovely short advertisement. The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck? We can help. Visit jfcokc.com. Our episode 16 guest is Kali Smith. I'm super excited to sit down with you, Kali. First of all, just want to say again, thank you so much for your time. It's wonderful to be with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited for this opportunity.
Yeah. So Kali, and I'm not going to steal thunder because I want to brag about you a little bit, and then I want you to brag about yourself a little bit. That might feel awkward, but we want to hear about your story. So you're currently a Pro 2 Tier A, recently promoted in August, assistant referee. You do have 4 MLS games under your belt and a vast array of experience at various other levels and things too. So I won't go into that. I'll let you talk about your story, but let's back it up before we get to that, where the last maybe couple years have been. And let's go all the way back to the beginning and hear about, why refereeing? How did you get involved in this whole mess that we find ourselves in?
Yes. I feel like kind of like everyone else, just I started playing when I was 5 and loved the game. I started refereeing when I was about 13. My dad and I certified together. We'd go out to the fields together. And I was lucky. I had a lot of just kind of my dad's age or a little bit older that I'd ref with. And they'd give, I felt like they helped me to love the game and always kind of protected me. So, I had some of those situations where parents were yelling or things like that, but they always helped me to really enjoy it. So that's kind of how I got started. But I did a lot of local games with my dad and lots of local tournaments. So I grew up in northern Utah, which is about 2.5 hours from Salt Lake. And I didn't know any of promotion or upgrades, any of that was possible. So sorry, there's a fly that keeps getting
It's all right.
But, I didn't know any of that was possible. So I started when I was 13. I took a little bit of a break here and there, but I kind of got back into it around college, going to college. I walked onto the track team at Utah State. So I needed a little bit of extra cash. So I did refereeing whenever I had time. But then I kind of thought just those local games, local tournaments was it. So I actually decided I was going to finish out the season. I was just going to stop reffing because I had just graduated. I had my first teaching job. I was engaged, all of these things that I was there's a lot of other things I can spend my time doing. But my dad, he's one of the assigners in the area, and he met a guy named JP Spicer Escalante. But he had him come and watch one of my games. And before the game, he was like, hey, just so you know, I have this guy who works in MLS coming. And I was like, oh, that's, I just kind of blew it off. I thought, this is weird, but okay. And after the game, he was very happy. And he asked me all these questions like, why aren't you a grade 7? Why haven't you been going to regionals? All these things. And I gave him that deer in the headlights look of, I have no idea what you're talking about, what any of that means. So kind of from there is where it progressed into, I started understanding and learning what, the upgrade process was and what was possible. So that's kind of, he was a big step into me not quitting and pursuing this more seriously.
So one thing I wanted to kind of that's awesome, and we actually talked about this. Phil and I did just before we are having our conversation here on the recording about just how many people don't know what's out there, and don't have an idea about what all is available. They just see what's in their local leagues, and how there's probably, unfortunately, the tragedy is there's a lot of referees that might get lost in that shuffle.
Yep.
And then the other piece that I thought that I really like is you and your dad working together. I'm sure those are probably some fond memories, and even in some of our local classes, we see parents coming in. So I don't know, do you have a word of encouragement if a parent's thinking about going out and doing it with their kids? Is that a go for it from you?
Absolutely. So it started out with me and my dad, and then I have 3 sisters. So at one point, all of us were certified. So we'd all go out together. We'd go to tournaments. It really helped bond us, helped our, strengthen our relationship. And my dad still just gleams and just glistens anytime he can talk about us. He's really excited. But I do think that it helped my relationship with him, but then we could have those ups and downs together with my siblings and all of that. So it was a good family building or bonding experience.
There you go. Well, you've heard it here, folks. If you're go and if you need an activity to do as a family, we've got a refereeing. We can get you registered and going. There'll be some good memories there. So
Yeah.
very cool. So that's the beginnings of that journey, and obviously that has taken off. So talk to us a little bit more about how that progressed.
Yeah. So that was in 2012 is when I met JP. So 2013 was my first regionals, and then I started doing USL games. I started getting into the college scene. I worked and I haven't this year, but up until this year, I've worked for Sandy Hunt doing Pac-12, West Coast, Big Sky, Mountain West, all that stuff. And so I kind of got into there. And then 2015, I got pregnant and had my first child November of 2015. And then in 2017, I think it was. Yeah, 2017, I ended up going to ODP, regionals and nationals. And then regionals, nationals. I was selected as a referee for nationals and had a really good tournament there. I ended up getting boys 17 semifinal, and then the boys 19 fourth official final. And so that tournament went really well. That same year, I started in the pro development group. I was undecided on which track I was going to go. So I had a lot of experience as an assistant referee, and I loved that. But kind of the end of 2016 to 2017, I really started to grow as a referee. And I went to nationals, had a really good tournament there. And the next year I was selected to go back as a returner. And so I don't know if it's still the same way or anything, but in order to go to nationals, you had to go back to regionals so that you could kind of... So I kind of joke about it, but I was super spoiled because that year I was forced to go back to regionals, and it was in Hawaii. So
there you go.
What better place to be in, right? Hawaii, reffing. So that one, that was 2018 is when I went to Hawaii, and my tournament there did not start out great. So, I was on this really big high of I'm going back to nationals as a returner. And my first game, I think it was a U19 boys middle referee. And Jeremy Hansen was actually the mentor on it. And after the game, he pulled me aside, and I knew it was not my best performance. I knew I could do better. I knew I had done better. But he pulled me aside, and we joke about it now, but he made me cry. So the first time we met, I was in tears. And I think this kind of brings back the fact that referees are human, and, so leading up to that, I was living in Utah, but my husband had just graduated with his MBA, and so we had just recently moved to Idaho Falls. And then maybe a month before regionals, my daughter had surgery. And right before that, my husband was in Germany for 3 weeks. So there was just a lot that led up to regionals that I wasn't maybe necessarily in the best mindset.
Sure.
And I was a little rusty. I had been doing quite a few fourth officials, but I hadn't really been in the middle. So I was a little bit, I was just off. And so it was a really good conversation with Jeremy, though. Him giving me some good feedback, telling me, life's going to happen, and we're going to have these times where we might not be at our best mindset, but figuring out ways to get us back focused and having a routine before each game that kind of gets you back in there. So that was a really good kind of experience for me to kind of go through that and have someone at his level give me some advice. But the next day, I had a U19 boys AR, and Ian Anderson ended up being the mentor on that one. And that game went really well. So he pulled me aside after the game and he says, if you want this, you have a really good shot. You have an opportunity with this if you want it.
Wow.
And so I kind of had those two experiences, and at the time I didn't know which track I wanted to do. So I decided I wasn't going to make any decisions until after nationals. I also I had been doing a bunch of fourth officials for them, some AR or some like USL ARs, but so I had my first NWSL assigned game that August, so like maybe a couple weeks after nationals. So I decided I'm going to wait till after nationals. I'm going to wait till after this AR just to make a decision. And after I had that NWSL AR, I knew that's what I wanted to do. It was just, I was comfortable. It felt very natural. And so that's kind of when I made the decision so that was in 2018. 2019 was my first year in pro. At the time they called it the development group. Now it's Pro 2. So in Pro 2, as an AR, mid-season I got promoted to Tier B. I ended up getting a semifinal and then a quarterfinal, a semifinal for NWSL and a quarterfinal for USL. And so, I progressed pretty quickly through there. The end of that year, I got pregnant with my second daughter. And so I was like, climbing up, and I had this goal that, I wanted to prove to myself and to everyone else that women can have a baby and they can come back and they can still, they can still do everything that they, and so I had this plan, I'm gonna I'd come back in July. I'd take the women's test in July and hopefully the men's test in August. Well, as you know, 2020 was not a year it was just a crazy year. So I was anticipating to miss at least the first half of the season, and maybe a little bit more. And the way it worked out, I missed 4 weeks of the whole season.
Wow.
So I had my daughter in April 30th, and 10 weeks later I passed the women's test and was able to have my first game back in August. So they did give us the option to opt out, but I made that goal that I wanted to come back, and I did it for myself and for my family. Just so that's kind of where that was. And then 2021, that was a really good year for me. That was kind of my just breakthrough year. So I had my first international game, and that was quite a fun experience. And then I ended up having a conference semifinal for USL, and then I ended up having the NWSL final last year. So
Wow. It's
been quite a journey.
It certainly has. I mean, and just in so much in what you said there that you know what's coming. The next question that I'll ask about is highs and lows. And so much of what you talked about in there was just these kind of make or break moments, going back to regionals with Jeremy and what that conversation was like, right? And that's mirrored honestly probably on the field too. You have moments where you're like, I just kicked that call, right? And you have a choice, just like in that game, you have a choice in your career. And your journey is an example of going, you know what, I'm not going to let this beat me down. I'm going to turn the page, move to the next day. And the next day you get one of the best ARs in our country that gets a chance to, no shade to Jeremy either. I mean, two great ARs, right? But Ian, to be able to have that conversation with him and see you perform in that, I mean, it's just, and if we don't persevere through those moments, I mean, this is my takeaway from what you're hearing. Hopefully our listeners are probably pulling other things. But that's such a beautiful story of going, I mean, you were stuck at regionals in Hawaii, so it's not like you were going to... In
Hawaii, I mean, a terrible place to be.
You were suffering for sure, but...
But
so, I mean, you had more games to do, but, that mentally could have taken you out if you wanted it to, right? I'm sure.
Well, and at the time, I mean, because I knew I was going back as a returner, I personally felt like I let the tournament staff down. I let Utah down. I let Region 4 down. And so, like, I already knew that. And then for him to, like, say, like, yeah, I've heard good things about you, and this just wasn't this performance was not meeting that, basically. You know, like, I already knew it, and then to have someone else tell me what I knew, like, I was beating myself up more than he was even. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think we, as referees, are our own worst critics, you know, but being able to take a step back and say, okay, this was one game. How can I learn from this?
Right.
What can I do better? And for me, it was, how can I mentally prepare for each game?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So are there other highs and lows on your story? I mean, you've mentioned a couple of those: international competition, the NWSL final, opportunities to work MLS games. I mean, those are significant highs.
So I'll finish with this year, because this year, as I was kind of reflecting on this year, preparing for this, it's been an amazing year. Like, I have so much to be grateful for. So I started out the season. The NWSL did their Challenge Cup. So I had a semifinal on the Challenge Cup, and then I was the reserve AR on the final. And so I got a call in April saying that they wanted to use me as a trialist in the MLS, and so I had to do all of the onboarding process, set up for the COVID testing, get all the uniforms and everything. And so I had about a month to prepare, kind of figuring out VAR, just kind of what expectations were, MLS versus USL versus NWSL, kind of all of that type of stuff. And it was a really special just game, a moment, just everything, because it ended up being in Salt Lake. So that's a 3.5 hour drive from Idaho Falls, 4 hour drive. And then it's a 2 hour drive from my parents. So I was able to have my husband, my 2 girls, my parents were there. Some of my best friends that I've met through refereeing. I have a friend that lives in Orlando that flew in for the game. My sister and her husband were there. And so it was just a very special experience, because like I was able to experience that for myself, but I was able to experience it with so many people that I love and who have supported me through this journey.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was just like, it was there. The referee liaison was one of my mentors growing up as well. So it was like such a cool experience. And he took a picture of just me hugging my husband and my daughters, and we're just like, I'm crying, you know, just because it was just really cool. Just all the hard work that, you know, I've put into this, and, you know, the sacrifices that my family and I have all had to make, and to kind of have that together was just amazing, knowing that I had that support there. And then the rest of the season, I mean, I had 3 Open Cup games, quite a few international games, and then I was able to go to my first CONCACAF event. So I went to the U15 Girls Championship in August in Tampa. So, I mean, like I said, as I was preparing for this, I looked back and I was like, I haven't actually taken time to just appreciate all that I've been blessed with this year. Right.
So, wow, that's amazing. Very cool. And that's certainly a lesson for all of us, to take a moment to, you know, we get caught up in the ebbs and flows of it, but to reflect back on what's been beautiful about the journey for each of us.
Yeah, exactly.
So, very cool. So, you've already kind of talked about highs and lows. I'll give you a space if there's more that you want to discuss there, or we can move on.
Yeah, so I actually, kind of when I was still deciding between referee AR, I was able to do, so like I said, I was in the pro development at the time group, and I was able to do it was the inaugural game for the Utah Royals. So I was the 4th official on that. And that was my first like professional game. And again, that was just and again, it was in Salt Lake, so it was just such a cool experience. I actually have this very fond memory of we walk out of the tunnel and it's a sold out crowd. My husband and my oldest daughter were there, and they kind of, I think, were up higher, and my parents were like, no, we want to be where we can see you and all this stuff. So we turn around from the walkout and I can see my parents just right there. They're right in at the center field and maybe a couple rows up, and I made the mistake of making eye contact with my mom, and she just starts bawling, and I'm like, I cannot look at her right now. She's, making me kind of teary-eyed and all that stuff. So that's just like a fun experience just to, reflect back on. And so I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. I mean, I think everyone's had those highs and those lows, and
right.
Kind of like we talked about, just finding ways. I remember so going back to JP, he was a big part of kind of what helped me progress throughout the years. He would go down to Salt Lake with his son Danny and I remember my first adult game that had a mass confrontation, and I was, pretty just, I didn't know how to feel after the game,
Right.
Just what could I have done to prevent that, all of these things. And he gave me some really good, just like, you made it through it. There's going to be more, but you made it through this one. And so I think just looking, kind of advice to myself and to other referees is that, we're going to have some of those first moments, but when we make it through it, what can we learn from it? And it's probably not going to be the last mass confrontation. I mean, it's not the last mass confrontation I've seen.
Right.
But I made it through it. What did I learn from that experience?
Yeah.
So that was a really good thing to just like, okay, I made it through it. Now, how do we? What could I have done different? What can I do in the future to help? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Great learning points there, that hopefully those moments don't just pass us by without the opportunity to learn from them. No doubt.
Yeah.
So one of the prompts I had mentioned, it's always worth asking any crazy or memorable moments along that. You already talked about some memorable things for sure, but anything that's, everybody wants to know, these crazy stories or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I know I have them.
Sure.
I think my first international was just an eye-opener.
Sure.
So it was Club America and versus Santos. And the Club America fans were just, it was a party. Like, it was just loud. There were balloons, streamers everywhere. I mean, they showed up before the referees even showed up, and we showed up 2.5 hours early,
Wow.
So but they were there to just have a good time. And I mean, it was just a very cool experience to just, I mean, we had a mass confrontation in the first 20 minutes, and the coach was sent off. And I mean, I remember when the referee blew the whistle for the kickoff, balloons were everywhere, streamers everywhere. Just, it was just a very just eye-opening experience.
Oh, no doubt. Wow.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I think maybe a crazy one when this was a while ago when I was, I think I was a grade 7 at the time, maybe a 6. There's a Bosnian team that's in Salt Lake, and so there was a little bit of a language barrier, but the goalie did not like whatever I called. I don't even remember what the call was, but he kept coming towards me, and I put my hand out and I said, stop, you need to stop there. And he kept coming at me, and he chased me to the halfway line, and I ended up having to abandon the match because he wouldn't stop.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was probably one of the more crazy, kind of on the verge of scary moments for me,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think we've all had some of those moments.
Sure.
And we learn and we move on and we live. Yep, we learn and move on and hope it doesn't happen again, and we'll be prepared if it does.
That's right. So knowing what you know now, if you could go back and tell first month, first year, first weekend, Kali, the referee, what would you say?
I think I definitely want to tell myself to really read and study the laws more, just so that when I was faced with just a different circumstance, I would know what to do, what the restart was, just for some of those type of things. I would say to be a sponge and take advantage of the experienced people around me, so that I could learn from them, you know?
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's probably what I would, and just, I would also say, dream big. Like I said, I didn't know any of this was possible, and, if you have a dream, like, it's okay to dream big, and you might have to reevaluate your goals every so often, but don't be afraid to reach big.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been great, Kali. I'm so thankful for your time today and to hear about your story. And I think the most exciting thing, at least for me, is that this is truly still just the beginning. There's so much more that lies ahead for you. And
I'm excited to see what's in the future.
Yeah, well, you have, with our team, at least 4 of us in Kansas City that will be cheering you on.
Thank you.
So you always have, a free barbecue lunch in Kansas City if you come this way. But
hopefully I come that way soon.
Maybe not before the match, but maybe after. That's better.
Yeah, definitely after. I don't know if I could have barbecue before the match.
I have tried it. It does not go well. I'll just tell you that much.
Yes.
So, but no, and I know our listeners, as we hear more about, you guys, and realize the humanness behind the official, we start to, and a lot of us that are in this craft, we know that, but as we start to hear your story, we take such a vested interest, so we're excited to see where everything takes you, and just wish you all the best. But
I appreciate it.
Like I warned you, this will be your opportunity to give your last, if you won't be able to sleep tonight unless you say this to the Check Complete podcast. It's all yours.
I would say we meet a lot of people doing this, and make sure you find your group or your people that you can share those highs and lows with. Some of my best friends are who I met reffing, and we have a group chat that we pretty much talk every day. And it's not always about soccer, but find your people, the people that help make you better and can help you during those highs and lows. And then just, I think kind of I've heard you talk about with others on the podcast is control what you can control.
Yeah.
And not, don't be focused on what you can't control. But you can control how mentally prepared you are, how physically prepared you are, that you know the laws. Control what you can control.
Absolutely.
Yeah, find your people and then just enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Kali, thank you again, and best wishes as you continue to pursue your goals.
Thank you so much.
The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help. Visit jfcokc.com. Sadly, this brings episode 16 of the Check Complete podcast to an end. Phil, it's been great to be with you on this episode.
Has it?
It has, for me, at least.
It has. It has indeed.
Good. Had me there.
No, it's been awesome to talk to local referees at the grassroots level all across the country, to talk about my own pathway, to talk about Kali's pathway, and sharing her story and how she's moving up the ranks too to get to her goals. And last thoughts would be just to let all grassroots referees know that if you have aspirations to move up in refereeing, that's great. Reach out to your local assigners, your SRCs, your referee coaches, any mentors that you might have, or just older officials, and see what's the first step I can get to that next level, and do it, because like we said at the beginning, like everyone has their own pathway to get to whatever they want, and it's nice to get different versions of it. And so go out and create your own.
Right. And just a point of clarification, SRC is the State Referee Committee. So
Yes.
sometimes we use acronyms and we don't always... we assume everybody knows, so I'm guilty of that, but there's lots of leadership in your local area that can help you get to the next level. So we truly do hope that this was a good experience for you. Enjoyed the episode 16. You continue to enjoy the episodes of the Check Complete podcast. Lots more content to come with more exciting guests. We're so thankful for Phil's time and for Kali's time. It's just wonderful to hear different stories and see how we can connect in them, learn from them, and just kind of take some comfort that we're all in this journey together, and it's at our own pace. Life happens, things happen. Just keep moving forward and continue to do the best we can, give all that we've got. Remember that people matter along the way. If you do have other suggestions for topics or guests you'd like to hear from, all that kind of stuff, please let us know. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at check_complete, Check Complete Podcast on Facebook, Check Complete Podcast on the YouTubes. Hopefully you're watching it here. We also have audio-only options as well in your favorite podcasting services. Any questions or anything like that, be sure to reach out to us, questions at checkcompletepodcast.com. You can slide into our DMs, the private messages, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. Where should they subscribe?
They should subscribe right here.
There'll be a button there.
This will be the most popular episode. I guarantee it. It'll be great.
Big words, big words. If you, for some wild reason, did not enjoy this episode or have something you'd like to complain about, please write it on the back of the Ref Score Vibrating Watch 2.0 and send it our way.
Please.
We'll get right on that. Okay?
Do it.
This has been the Check Complete Podcast, episode number 16. So thankful for your time and for spending time with us. We know it's valuable, but we appreciate you. Keep up the good work. Thanks again, Phil. We'll see you next time.